it looks like he's ready to fire somebody. I don't know if you believe that. He says, I'm not happy with him. He said Jay Powell's playing politics, and if I want him out, he'll be out real fast, believe me. Does the law allow for that?
I agree with Chair Powell that the law doesn't allow for that, but I also think that Trump 2 is much less invested in the rule of law than Trump 1. A lot of what the president is saying about Powell isn't that different than the kind of grousing he was doing in Trump 1. But back then, the idea that you would oppose the courts or that you would just go ahead and fire people at will and see where the chips fell in the courts was not what we were dealing with. We also know that he has a more supportive Supreme Court this time around. We know that 2 of the justices have already expressed some discomfort, the conservative justices on the Supreme Court, discomfort with Humphrey's executor. So that probably emboldens him even further. So I think it would be absolutely terrible to compromise Fed independence. You and I have talked about that before. But I think the risks to that are higher than they've been really in my lifetime that I've been paying attention to this anyway.
We heard earlier today from Bloomberg opinion columnist Mohammed El-Arian talking about this very issue and how Jay Powell should proceed in the midst of the president's criticism. Jared, here's what he said.
We know that President Trump has been frustrated at the absence of interest rate cuts. I suspect he got very angry when he heard Chair Powell yesterday. Chair Powell really put all the blame on tariffs, gave no possibility to the better outcome, zero, give it zero possibility. There's a real question for Chair Powell. Should he step down to preserve the independence of the Fed? Because otherwise, the Fed will be the subject of a lot of attacks going forward.
What do you think about this, Jared? Jay Powell stepping down.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of El-Arian, of course, a very smart guy, but I think he's got that one very much wrong. I think for Powell to step down, it would be a step down at Trump's behest, and it would be compromising Fed independence. Now, I guess there's an argument that that's coming anyway, but that's not certain, and the courts haven't ruled. So I think Jay Powell is absolutely right to stay where he is and to keep telling it like it is. And I really appreciated the kinds of things that Powell was saying at that Chicago conference, I believe it was Friday, where he was just doing what he always does. He's data-driven. He's independent from political pressures. He was calling it like he sees in terms of the puts and takes in the economy on inflation and tariffs. And for that matter, we all know what tariffs are going to do to inflation and to growth. They're already stagflationary in the Fed's forecast and everyone else's. So I think the idea that Powell would somehow accommodate Trump here is pretty misguided.
Well, I think we all appreciate the principle of Fed independence. Jared, you've certainly spoken to it for years here on Bloomberg. I just wonder where you draw the line on noise. President Trump's going to do this. He's going to be on Truth Social. He's going to say things when reporters are in the room. He was, by the way, asked if he regrets nominating Powell today. He said, I think he's terrible, but I can't complain because we had the most successful administration economically in history. How much of this is just Trump being Trump versus impacting markets, impacting treasuries and interest rates?
Well, it's a great question. It's both, of course. And, you know, while I think this kind of noise is destructive in the way that markets are just so highly elastic to everything the administration says and does right now, especially on tariffs, that kind of whiplash is terrible. But I'm recalling a conversation I had with a senator once who said, let me get this straight. I can stand up and talk about sending American men and women into war, but I can't stand up and say anything about the interest rate. It's a fair point. And so if President Trump wants to make noise, I don't like it, but fine. The problem here, again, this is the difference between Trump 1 and Trump 2. The problem here is that the rule of law is simply not the constraint that we need it to be on this White House. We're talking about Fed independence now, but we could easily be talking about deportation and just numerous acts that certainly, I'm not a lawyer, but look, quite illegal to me. And while I worked in White Houses where you measure 3 times and cut once, these guys don't measure, they cut. And I do think that's extremely problematic.
Well, just quickly then, in our remaining moment, Jared, maybe explain the difference between the two scenarios here in Europe and the United States. When Donald Trump hears a headline like he did about an interest rate cut this morning, what would be your advice to him as an economic advisor to talk about why the U.S. might not be in the same position?
Well, we're the one imposing the tariffs, and they're the one that are going to be facing the tariffs. So
is it as simple
if
as
I were
that?
advising Donald Trump, and I think if he wants to make much of this go away, not all of it, because I think there's been some real damage done to our reputational credibility here in terms of our trading partners. But if Trump came out tomorrow and said, guess what, victory is mine, I won the trade war, it's over, I think a lot of these headaches would be behind him. Not that he's listening, but that would be my advice.